Often to graph a function, we must perform multiple transformations. It is important to recognize the basic function as well as transformations. It is also important to perform those transformations in a correct order. Though order of some transformations can be switched, you should probably stick to the following guidelines. You start with the basic function. Then you look whether you have the shift left or shift right. The next would be horizontal stretch and compression, and therefore you are looking for some coefficient of x. Then we'll do reflection about the y-axis, and that is represented by the negative sign next to the x. Next transformation will be vertical stretch or compression, and then reflection about the x-axis, and finally shift up and down. Let's look at an example. The function f of x is equal -3 square root of x minus 1 plus 2. We can see that these are transformations of the function square root of x. So the basic function is the square root of x. Now we are looking for shift left or right, and therefore replacing the value of x with x plus c or x minus c. And here we have x minus 1, replacing x in the square root. So next we'll graph function square root of x minus 1. And that means we'll have to shift the graph right by 1 unit. Once we have the square root of x minus 1, we'll have to multiply that by 3, and that means multiplying by 3 means vertical stretch. Next, addition to the formula is the minus sign in front of 3, and adding minus sign in front of the function means reflection about x-axis. And finally, we are adding to that previous formula 2, and if this happens, if we are adding 2 to a function, then this means shift up by 2. So let's graph the functions one at a time. We'll start with the basic function. This is function y equals square root of x. We have plotted 4 points, and we'll use those points to plot the rest of the graphs. Now, next, we'll graph the function square root of x minus 1. It means we shift that graph to the right by 1. Every point is moving to the right by 1. So it is horizontal shift. The x coordinate is increased by 1, y coordinates stay the same. And this is my green graph. This is the graph of function square root of x minus 1. Next, we'll have to multiply the square root of x minus 1 by 3. It means we have to stretch vertically by a factor of 3. Every y coordinate is multiplied by 3. So 0.10 stays the same. 0.21 becomes 0.2 and 3. 0.5 and 2 becomes the 0.5 and 6. And the 0.10 and 3 becomes 10 and 9, which will not fit on the graph. So here is the graph of the function y equals 3 square root of x minus 1. Next part is reflection about the x-axis. So every point on the yellow graph will have to be reflected about the x-axis. So 0.10 stays where it was. 0.2 and 3 becomes 2 and -3. 0.5 and 6 becomes 5 and negative 6. And since we can't plot another point, we'll just graph that function. And this is the graph of negative 3 square root of x minus 1. And finally, we have to shift that graph by 2. So every point is moving up by 2. Point 1, 0 moves to the point 1, 2. Point 2, negative 3 moves to the point 2 and negative 1. Point 5, negative 6 moves to the point 5 and negative 4. And here is the graph of this function. And this is the graph of my function f of x. This is the graph of negative 3 square root of x minus 1 plus 2.